Good evening, everybody. Buenas noches. Let me first thank all of you for joining us for our inaugural, I said, Latina Empow Summit. Give yourselves applause for being here. Thank you so much. We all want you to have a great experience. We want you to network. We want you to exchange cards. This is an opportunity for all of you to not only get to know each other, but also, get some great insight from our many speakers that we'll have over the next couple of days. And so we're just really excited about the programs, and of course, this was all made possible thanks to our sponsors. And I do want to take a moment to thank our platinum sponsor, Microsoft. So everyone, thank Microsoft for your support, not only for being the host sponsor for our Latina Empow Summit, but also being a sponsor supporter of our Latina research study that we'll be releasing while we're here. And so we're really thankful for our partnership with Microsoft. And so we would like to have Diana Navas Roset to give a few words on behalf of Microsoft. So please welcome Diana to the stage on behalf of Microsoft. Thank you.
All right, good evening and welcome to the inaugural Latina Empow Summit. How excited are we to be here? Yes. So we are here today thanks to the vision, the work and the commitment of Lisette, Sid, and the small but mighty team that makes this organization so important to who we are as a community and to our ability to create more spaces for more Latinos in corporate America. So please join me in thanking them and recognizing them for the great work. It is such an honor to be here today welcoming you on behalf of Microsoft. Our mission to empower every person and every organization on the world to achieve more is what drives our commitment to expand opportunities today so that we can create the world that we want to see tomorrow. It is what drives our inclusion strategy, what keeps us steady in our journey towards a more equitable world. Our mission to empower, it's also connected to what we're doing here today. The connection to the team and the goal for this event. Empowering Latinas, creating a space for us to be intentional, to come together, to share stories, to learn, and to discuss how can we create better workplaces for the future. As a longstanding partner of HACER, Microsoft continues to look for ways to actively demonstrate that commitment, that support, because we know that dynamic Latino leaders and cutting-edge technology are a powerful combination. We know that Latinas with a vision, when empowered, will make the world a better place. I can't be any more proud to work for a company that shows its commitment, not only in words, but also in action. As an example of that commitment, we made the decision to become the corporate research innovator as well as the diamond sponsor for this initiative. And we're anchoring that commitment in our culture of growth mindset. We see this as an opportunity to learn, to better understand the challenges that Latinas face in corporate America. And we want to take a leading role in engaging in the dialogue, but most importantly, in the actions necessary so that we can affect change together. This is why we're here today. We're here to learn with you and from you. We want to be able to identify better practices so that we can continue on this journey together. As I reflect on the word empowerment, I couldn't help but hear the words of my parents playing in the back of my head. My parents telling me, "Mija, you're stronger than you think you are. Diana, creemos en ti. We believe in you." See, when I think about empowerment, I see about the process of becoming stronger, of becoming more confident, of owning my potential and materializing it through actions. So as we get ready to immerse in a fantastic 2 days of empowerment, let this be an invitation to be confident, to be confident about our skills, our abilities, and our power. Let it be an invitation to connect and make a commitment to not only create the space so that we can inspire and care for the next generation of Latina leaders, but also to use our collective power to remove obstacles and create more opportunities for growth. Again, on behalf of Microsoft, welcome and enjoy the event.
We have never had a Latina Fortune 500 CEO ever before until she broke that ceiling and made history. Please give a big, warm welcome to someone who I admire so much, Geisha Williams, our Latina history-making leader. So thank you. Oh, yes, please.
Great.
You got it?
Wonderful. Great.
Thank you. Okay. How are you, Geisha?
Thank you for that wonderful introduction. It's wonderful to be here at the inaugural, Empower Her, Empower Summit. It's wonderful to be here. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here with you.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, like I said, for me, it's such a great honor and privilege, and I know for many of us that are here, it's such a great privilege. But I want to start with really your beginnings. You were born in Cuba, and you came at the age of 5. Can you just give us, maybe those early years? And I know that your parents played a significant role in your path, but
Sure.
yeah.
My parents, what I was saying, scrimped and saved. My father worked 3 jobs. He worked in a factory during the day. At night, he washed dishes at the local restaurant. And on weekends, he stocked shelves at a little grocery store. It was all the time. My dad worked 7 days a week. And my mom, who didn't really feel comfortable leaving me alone, she was terrified that something was going to happen to me, right? She did something called piecework. Do you guys know what piecework is? Most people don't know what piecework is, but piecework is when you get paid by the piece of thing, whatever that thing is that you do. In her case, she was cutting embroidered collars for lingerie and for nightgowns. And for every 12 pieces that she trimmed and counted and tied in a little bundle, she'd get like 2 pennies. But that was fine. She worked all the time, cutting. She's got a little callus on her finger from it. And she made a few bucks, not a lot, a few bucks, but between what my father was doing and what she was doing, somehow, again, immigrants are amazing. They saved enough money that they were able to buy a little grocery store.
Wow.
Tiny little grocery store in Jersey City, New Jersey.
Woohoo, New Jersey.
Go Jersey. Any Jerseyans out there? 'Cause I love Jersey.
Yeah.
I'm a Jersey girl.
Go County.
Apart from being Cuban, I'm a Jersey girl. And Miami, too. But anyway, they bought this little grocery store, and the grocery store wasn't very successful, Sid. It was kind of a dump and didn't have very good sales. But my parents are amazing people. They're friendly, and they're funny, and they're smart, and they did what they always did. They worked hard, and they made that store successful. They extended credit to the community. My dad did personal deliveries. My mom tells a very funny joke. People would come, and before you knew it, that little grocery store that wasn't very successful was very successful. And they flipped it. And then they bought another grocery store, a little bit bigger one, and then another one, and then another one. And all the while, I worked at the grocery stores. My after-school activity, unlike a lot of other kids that I was growing up with, I didn't go to ballet. I didn't go to the brownies. I always wanted to be a brownie. I wanted to be a brownie so bad. No brownies for me. I went to the grocery store, and I was the cashier in the afternoon shift so that my mom could go home, make dinner, take care of my brother, kind of get things going for him, and I would help my dad close down the store at night. And, I think back on that time, and it was magical. Because it wasn't like I was working in a grocery store and I was unhappy about it. I was part of the family business. You know what I mean? I was somebody. I was part of this business. And my parents didn't speak English, so I was their translator. And I translated real estate issues, accounting issues, legal issues, tax issues. I was like 7 or 8, and I was like the family interpreter, and I felt very important, you know? And that experience was formative. I learned about customer service, about being part of a community, about helping people in their hour of need. My dad had something called a libreta. It's a notebook. It's where he kept credit. And his philosophy was, you'll pay me when you can. And,
Wow.
you know, that's a big part of who I am. I think about what my parents did, what they meant to these communities, and I'm so proud that I was part of that family business and that work ethic and that being there, you know, every day, helping our community thrive is a big part of who I am, and I have my parents to thank for that, and I'm very grateful to it.
That's great, and I'm so glad you shared that, because I think many of us have probably had similar stories growing up, especially for those of us that are next generation Latinos. Mine was actually very, very similar, because my parents came from the Dominican Republic in the 1960s and opened a very small little medical clinic in Washington Heights, New York City. Washington Heights this summer, when you see the movie, you see the corner where my parents had their practice there.
I can't wait. Can I say? I can't wait.
Yeah, I can't wait either. And so I'm so excited about that. But yeah, I remember as a kid going and helping my mom, with their patients, and then the same thing, customer service and old-fashioned house calls, all those things. And it's funny that you mentioned that little libreta, because every Latino business has that little libreta, because there's always someone in the neighborhood that is good. They're just good for the credit. They just don't have it there, but
they'll pay me when they can.
Yeah.
That was my father's philosophy. I love that.
That's great. And it's great because I think it also probably gave you a good, not only sense of customer service, but also just that business background. Because that eventually, as you went to college and you went to the University of Miami, I don't know if there's any Miami Hurricanes here. I don't know. I know, and I'm sorry that my Buckeyes beat Miami in the 2006.
We don't speak about that.
I
It
know,
was a bad call, and we deserve that win.
So I know that's still a controversial call, but we had a controversial call this past one.
I know you did.
To Clemson. So I guess it was payback. But you're the first to go to college in your family, and what was that experience like? Because we also know that sometimes sometimes families, when their Latinas are getting ready to go to college, whether they're going away to college or staying nearby, sometimes what was that for you and your family?
Well, first of all, I was not allowed to go away to college. Let's be really clear there. I grew up in New Jersey, in Union City. And my dream was to go to Princeton University. And I remember being a freshman in high school. Who does this? But I did this. And I called Princeton. Hello, I'm interested. I want to talk to admissions. I'm interested in understanding what is it exactly that you're looking for in, students. And so they told me, and I wrote it down. They wanted 4 years of a language. They wanted, at the time, they wanted sort of a well-rounded student. So they wanted sports, and they wanted academics, and they wanted student government. And I did it all. I had like a checklist. So sports, okay. Tennis, how about captain of the tennis team? Yeah, check. Community service, check. Student government, how about president? Check. I did it all. And I went to my parents, and I said, okay, I'm ready. Here's my application for Princeton. I felt pretty good. My chances, I had top grades. I did everything they said. And my father said, Princeton? Where's Princeton? Can you, show me? So I showed him the map. He goes, no, mija. You can go anywhere you want. And we lived in the metropolitan New York area. He brought out a map. He goes, you can go anywhere you want. He drew a circle, as long as it's in the circle, because you're sleeping at home. I was devastated. I was so upset because I wanted so badly to go to Princeton. And my parents, God bless them, college was college. They didn't really understand that Princeton might be different than Rutgers. And, but I'm a good daughter, and I'm an obedient daughter, so I said, okay, Papi. And I went to a school called Stevens Tech, which was focused on engineering, a great school. A year later, my parents moved to Miami. And they said, and you have to transfer. And I'm like, is there even a university in Miami? I mean, are you kidding me? And so I transferred to the University of Miami, and I was very unhappy about it. I was like, suntan U, what is that? I mean, I am a scholar, you know?
Yeah.
And my parents would have none of it. They wanted me to be home. They wanted me to, college was college, and I did. I transferred to the University of Miami. It was a great experience, as it turned out. But my parents instilled in me at a very, very early age, and maybe so many of you in the room could probably relate to it, that education was the key to sort of break the cycle. And even though they were working very hard and they were doing well, they wanted a different life for me. They wanted me to be a professional. Now, first generation, first time college students. I'm here to tell you, you don't have a lot of choices. You are one of the big five. You're gonna be a doctor, you're gonna be a lawyer, you could be an accountant, maybe a pharmacist, and an engineer. Those are the choices I had. My parents would like, there's no way that a first generation, and maybe I could be wrong, but not likely that a first generation Latina going to college is going to study art history
Yeah.
or medieval architecture. There's no way. They wanted, and they really instilled in me this like practical, you gotta get a job, you have to be able to make some money when you graduate from college. And thankfully, I liked math and science. You know, I really did.
Yeah.
And I had great teachers in high school that encouraged me, inspired me to look for a career in STEM, which back then was kind of unusual for women to be really seeking careers in engineering. And that's what I did. I focused on engineering. It was the best decision I ever made. I loved it. It's something I enjoyed and something that I could do well in. So I got a degree in engineering, made my parents very happy, and I graduated and went on to work at my first company, which I worked at for 24 years.
That's great, and you know, and you bring up a very interesting point, the fact that you know, we need to be more supportive of Latinas in STEM industries, and you went into a STEM field early in your career, and unfortunately, even today, we're still seeing the challenges. I'll put a plug. We did a STEM report, thanks to Dr. Garcia over there, who authored it. You know, just talking about some of the challenges in the STEM fields, and so it's but it's really amazing that you went into an industry that it was still very male-centric.
Yep. It was.
But yet you found a way to start moving up the ladder, and so my question for you is that what was your mindset in terms of thinking about moving up that corporate ladder, given that everywhere you were moving up, you were probably surrounded by mostly white males, and you're like, where mi gente?
Yeah, without a doubt. Look, you know, I was the first one in my family to go to college, so my aspirations weren't high. They weren't. You know, I remember graduating from college, and I wanted a good job at a good company. I know I didn't want to have my own business. My father worked 7 days a week, and I remember that being like a big deal for me. Like, I wanted weekends off. I wanted a job in corporate America. Good job, good company. And I did very well in college. I was a good student. I got good grades. And I remember getting a summer job in an energy company and falling in love with energy, just how important energy is to our quality of life, to commerce, to everything we do. I mean, really depends on energy. And I fell in love with it that summer between my junior and senior year. And so when I graduated from college and I got a job offer from that company, I jumped at it. Did I ever think for a moment that I could be CEO? No, never. I wanted to do good. I wanted to be excellent in my field. I wanted to deliver great results. I wanted to be a great professional. That's it. That's all I wanted. And I would have been very happy doing that, except for the fact that, you know, some people saw some things in me and encouraged me to do more than that. But my early aspirations, Sid, were pretty humble. You know, good job, good company, that's it.
Wow. You know, you mentioned that there was some that encouraged you to move up, and this is a topic, and I think we'll be talking about this throughout these next 2 days. Is mentorship and sponsorship, and can you talk about whether you had mentors internally? Did they evolve into sponsorships, and
Without a
did you
doubt.
pursue them, and what was your strategy to
Right.
in terms of that mentorship sponsorship strategy?
Well, first of all, I wish I could tell you that I had a strategy and that it was all me. It wasn't. It wasn't. It was them. So, yes, I had amazing mentors and amazing sponsors my entire career. My first significant mentor, who really was probably the most, I don't know, meaningful, the most inspiring one in my career, was this man named Clark Cook. Clark, you know, is a Southern man, the age of my father. So think about an old, white Southern man. And yet he is the most progressive, diversity-focused leader I've ever worked with. And I had luck in meeting him, and he saw something in me early, and he became my mentor very, very early, and my sponsor, because he was also an officer of the company. So, oh my gosh, not only is this guy my mentor, but he also has the ability to do something for me. And I remember sitting in his office one day, and as mentors always do, they ask you this question, which we all hate, right? So, Geisha, what do you see yourself in 10 years or 20 years? What's your long-term career objective? You know, I'm 25, right? And my long-term career objective is to not get fired and to, you know, to have a good job at a good company. And I don't know, I said something like I wanted to maybe be a supervisor, or I wanted to be a manager or something. And he's like, no, long-term, think long-term. I was thinking long-term. And he looked at me. I think I must have had a very puzzled look in my face. I must have looked really confused. He said, Geisha, somebody has to run this company someday. Why not you? Why not me, right? So, mid-'80s, there were no women running any company anywhere. There were no Latinos. There were no immigrants. It's ridiculous. But he made me believe that if I worked hard and if I prepared myself, I could go far. And I remember he took out this organization chart back in the day, right, when they had little pictures, and they described who was running each of these different lines of business and these different business units. And yes, they were all white men, without a doubt. But what he shared with me was that they were engineers, and they had experience running operational units. And he said to me, because if you get the experience, his expression was, if you get a little dirt under your fingernails, which meant working operations, there's no reason why you can't aspire to be one of them, and more importantly, the CEO of the company. Now, did I believe that I could become CEO at that point? No. But I did believe that maybe if I worked hard and I got the right experiences, that maybe I could aspire to be a business unit lead, a line of business lead, and I believed him. And so he was a mentor, he guided me, he inspired me, he every once in a while gave me a little bit of a nudge. He was also a sponsor because he was many, many higher levels above me. I know that he played a role early in my career in me moving here or me moving there. His view was, it was about getting a breadth of experience. And so he wanted me to get operations, he wanted me to get commercial, he wanted me to get customer, and he did all that for me early in my career. And so I'm very grateful that I had him as a mentor early on. I still, whenever I go to Miami, he's my parents' age, I always have lunch with him. I go to the same exact little restaurant in Coral Gables.
Yeah.
I think he has the same exact food every time.
That's funny.
And we talk about where am I, and he's still mentoring me. He's still mentoring me. He's like, well, there's a lot more that you can do. I'm like, Clark, you know, come on. I mean, come on. Give me a break. I think I've done okay. But yeah, mentors, I think in many cases, they guide you, they inspire you, and they They share insights, and they see something in you that sometimes you don't see in yourself. He definitely did that for me, and I'm eternally grateful for him as a mentor and a friend.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, because I think that is just such it's a strategy that I know that all of us need to think about as we're trying to move up the corporate ladder, and the fact that he was your mentor and sponsor over so many years, which is so true. I mean, I'll tell you, before I joined the Senate, I worked on Wall Street for 21 years, and my mentor sponsor was with me all 21 years, from the mailroom all the way up. And so so those sponsorships. And by the way, he was not Latino either. He was white, Caucasian,
Isn't that amazing?
Jewish, but he just believed in the fact that there was a need for diversity. And so he just was insistent, says, you need to be with me in this room, and I want you to follow this, and then go to this event here, and all those things. And so it makes such a big difference.
I tell you, when I was named CEO, the first people, I mean, other than my husband, he doesn't count, right? the first people I called my mom and dad, and there was tears, and it was very emotional. The second person I called was Clark Cook, and I think there were tears, and he was just so proud, and he said, he was like, in his very thick George, I always knew you could do it, and it's just so special when you have someone like that in your life, and I can tell that you had that in yours.
Oh yes, no, absolutely. So those are just it's mentorships and sponsors are so important.
So important. And I've had sponsors beyond Clark. I mean, people ask me all the time, how do you get a sponsor? How do you get a mentor? Well, sponsors find you. You don't find them; they find you. Mentors. Yes, you can do something about finding your mentor. A mentor can be a colleague, it could be a peer, it could be a superior, it could be anyone that you trust that's going to give you good, honest feedback about how you show up, how you perform, what maybe you could do different, how they perceive you. Mentors are fabulous, and I have had mentors my whole life. Sponsors are a little bit trickier. They're typically higher level, and sponsors are people that can pull you up, right? They can pull you up to their level, or at least promote you. And so how do you find a sponsor? You don't. They find you. You got to figure out how you can position yourself, how you can distinguish yourself to get the attention of a sponsor. And that's a little bit trickier, but absolutely important and critical, I think, as you think about navigating your career up into the C-suite. Sponsorship is very, very important. And I was a sponsor to many people. Why did I become a sponsor? I would see something in them that gave me a sense that they had something special, a quality, a capability, a leadership trait that I believed could be significant in terms of the business. So they find you. And how do you get found? That's another subject, and we can talk about that in a little bit. But how do you get found is about how you show up. It's about your results and about the opportunities that are given you, making sure you don't squander them. You get invited to a meeting, you speak up. You are not wallflowers, right? You do not wait to be asked. You speak up. You give your perspective. You don't wait. You find a way of distinguishing yourself. That's how you do it.
I'm so glad you share that, because my mentor and sponsor taught me about something that I've used to this very day. It's called declaring. And declaring is when you're in a meeting and you might be the only person of color or anyone there, and you ask a question, even though you know the answer to the question, because you're not really trying to get an answer, you're trying to declare that you're in the room.
You're in the room.
And then you say, my name is Sid Wilson, I'm president and CEO of Fraced. So dominicano de buena cepa. Sometimes I'll do that, not always, but sometimes I'll do that. But just by asking the question, you've now declared that you're in the room.
You're in the room, and your voice matters.
Exactly, and so something that he taught me early on, and I've used it ever since. So,
I can't tell you how many times, Sid, I've had meetings where there's been a group of men and women in the room, and really talented men and women in the room. That's why they're in the room. They're talented. We've invited them to be there. We've invited them to share perspective. Can't tell you how many times the women are just like, and it's like, dudes, dudettes.
Yeah.
You know, you've been asked to be in this room to provide perspective. Provide perspective. It's an incredible opportunity. Don't sit back. Don't wait.
Yeah.
Declare.
Yeah.
Show up. Have something to say. I think that's really important. If you have that opportunity, don't squander it. You've been asked because they want you there. Don't be shy. I know it can be intimidating, but find that courage within yourself to, A, be prepared,
Right.
so that you know the subject and the material and you can ask an intelligent question or whatever, but be noticed. Show up, you know, that's really important.
That's great. You know, I'd like to pivot a little bit to a challenge that often Latinas face, and that is managing your career trajectory while maintaining a balance with family. And you know, you're a mother, you're a wife, and you were able to rise up the corporate ladder. And you know, tell us what you did to manage that balance, even as you rose up to become a CEO.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I would tell you, it's not one size fits all. There's not a, you know, silver bullet. It's hard. It's about figuring out what's important to you and balancing it. It's also okay, I think, for yourself to realize sometimes you can't be all things to all people. You're going to make some mistakes, and sometimes you just can't make everybody happy at the same time. And I think you got to be okay with that. But what I would tell you is you can't do it alone. You need help. And I think it's realizing and accepting the fact that you're going to need help to do all these things. That's okay. So how does help show up? Well, help could show up in the terms of a great partner. Someone who is right there with you as an equal partner, helping you with the kids, with the house, with the bills, with the finances, with the toilet that overflowed, whatever it may be. You need a partner if you have a partner. You may not have a partner. Okay, well, how else you do it? Neighbors. Oh my gosh, I had a neighbor named Nancy that was awesome. She helped me so much. You know, her child was in the same preschool as my child, and I leaned on her, and she was grateful and happy to help me. My parents were nearby. My mother was a sales rep. She would pick up the kids from school and give them a little merienda, you know, a little snack before I got home and get them going on their homework. Sometimes it's your church, that you have a church or some sort of a group where your children can be a part of. And sometimes it could be something you can afford it. You can hire a nanny or you can hire a caregiver. And it's all good. Whatever it is that you need to provide you that balance, that sense that your kids are being well cared for. Because I tell you, if you don't feel like your children are being well cared for, you pull back. I know I would. You'd pull back. They're your priority. They were my priority. And so if you know that they're well cared for, if you know that they're good, that they're happy, that they're healthy, then it gives you the space you need to be able to lean into whatever's going on at work. But you need help. And I think first it's realizing it's okay. Nobody can do it alone. And then figuring out what help is available to you, what help you can afford, and leaning into it and not feeling badly about that. There's nothing to be ashamed of. You know, that whole adage about it takes a village, it does take a village to raise really good, healthy kids. And I think, I would tell you my two daughters, I have two daughters, 24 and 20, they never felt like I was anything but their mom. Yeah, I'm CEO, whatever. I'm their mom. I'm their mom. I was there, and either my husband Jay or I were at everything that they ever did. My mother pitched in. We had a nanny, Rosario, who's more than a nanny. She's family. And I think it's about figuring out how they can be well cared for. Yeah. And when they're good, you're good. And that's what I did. I leaned on a lot of people, and a lot of people were very gracious and very wonderful in helping me with my children. And I'm very grateful for that.
That's great. And I think that you know, that's for, as you know, for us Latinos, is, you know, family is is so important. And of course, growing up and seeing how, my parents had to run their, they had a medical clinic, but whenever I had, a band performance like this, you find a way. And talking to a lot of CEOs and hearing how they balance their travels and everything else with how they, how they find time with family. And we know that sometimes it could be a challenge, but but thanks for sharing that, because I think it's important to know that that it can be done. So
it's hard.
Yes.
I mean, let me
Yes.
tell you, it's hard. And the other thing I would say is, sometimes this whole thing about balance, I don't know that it's balance. It's about, I don't know, sometimes you're more here, focused on this issue and less there, and being okay with it. And then other times you're more on this issue and not that. It's about equilibrium long term.
Yeah.
But in any given moment, I don't know that it's balanced. You're more involved in one thing than the other. But in the long haul, as I always thought about it, if I didn't have healthy, happy children, nothing else would matter. So that tended to be my North Star, happy, healthy children. And then everything else would revolve around that. And even then, once in a while, I shoulda, coulda, woulda. They're good.
Right.
The girls are good. They're happy. They're healthy. They're successful. And I'm very fulfilled because of it. Being CEO might be my greatest professional achievement, but it's not my greatest joy. My greatest joy, my greatest true accomplishment is being a mom and a wife, and my family means really everything to me.
Oh, that's great. Can we talk about, given all of that, and just given, who you are as a Latina, we know that, and this is for Latinas and Latinos, is that sometimes when we go into the workplace, there's always a challenge for, depending on either your company or your industry, of being your authentic self. Can you talk about how you were able to be that authentic Geisha Williams and rising up in an industry that is so male dominated, and how did you manage that?
Yeah, and I would say it wasn't like automatic. It wasn't like I was my authentic self day one. I think I was trying to be somebody, act a certain way, trying to fit in, be one of the guys, maybe, male-dominated industry, and like uber professional, right? And I had this boss. His name was Manny Rodriguez. What a guy. Amazing leader. And I think I was in my late 20s, and I was working for him. I was manager of operations of a division, and very serious. And I was going to his office and, sharing results and sharing, where we were headed and my plans for my strategies and, what the plan of implementation was. And I remember him saying, "Can you, relax?" I'm like, what do you mean? I was like, can you lighten up a little bit? Sometimes you need to hear that. I'm like, well, I don't know what you're talking. He goes, "Geisha, you are terminally professional." What does that even mean? I think I was so focused and so caught up on being, professional woman, buttoned up. Yes, just a fact, sir. That I wasn't human, And he said to me, he goes, "Nobody likes to work for a robot. Nobody likes to work for an automaton. People like to know that they can connect with you as a leader on a human-to-human level. You have so many gifts. You have so much love in your heart. I know it." He says, "But nobody else does. I need you to just relax and be you, and people are really going to respond to you in a different way." And I remember being kind of offended by it. I remember going home and being like, "That Manny Rodriguez doesn't know what he's talking about. This is a professional environment." But I thought about it, and he was right. It's about being vulnerable and being authentic and about being who you are. I mean, you can't be anybody but who you are at the end of the day, and showing up in that sort of authentic way day in and day out is so meaningful. So I don't know that it was overnight. I think it took me a while to kind of work into it because I was afraid. I was very much in a norm that was working for me. I was like, professional. And over time, I think I started to loosen up, show a little bit more personality, crack a joke. Wow. And people laughed. Oh, did they laugh because I was the boss? Maybe. But over time, I just started getting more and more comfortable just being me. Just being me. And why was that important? Well, for one thing, think about the typical boardroom or the typical meeting room. How many Latinos or Latinas are in there? Not a whole lot. And if you're holding back and not being your authentic self, you're not really even representing who your people are and what you stand for. So let alone about what it means for you as a leader or as a person, you're not living your true self. So the more I did that, the more I kind of leaned into just being me, letting my guard down, being much more vulnerable, being much more authentic about how I felt. Wow, the results were amazing, the way people reacted to it, and the way they rallied, and the way they wanted to support and help and do more than I was expecting. It was an incredible gift he gave me. And I think of myself, and that was very early in my career, as I went through my career, I would say I was a very authentic leader. I shared, I provided perspective, I was always vulnerable, I didn't have all the answers, I didn't have to have all the answers. And I think at the end of the day, we made better decisions because there was more perspective and more diverse points of view that were provided. I wasn't afraid to provide a different point of view that maybe was more Latino or more female. So he gave me, and I'm so grateful for him, talk about sponsors and mentors, another one, that incredible gift of being true to me and being my authentic self. And I think clearly as a CEO, I was very much my own person. It never fit a stereotype. And I think back to that conversation many, many years ago, and I thank Manny for that.
Well, thank you, Manny, for that. I think that's just so important because I know that when we talk to a lot of, especially younger, Latinos and Latinas about being authentic. I feel corporate America is doing a better job now of allowing them to be authentic. Early in my career, I was not allowed to be that authentic because on Wall Street it was very this. And a real quick funny story is that I was very inauthentic until one day I decided to take some kids from Harlem to the New York Stock Exchange just to give them a tour, just because it was a nice thing to do. Somehow someone passed the news to Today in New York, the TV show, and then the anchor says, well, can we tag along with you? And I was like, but then I got to get my approval from my company and all that stuff. And I was like, oh my God, do I tell them I'm doing this? And they said, tell them. And so I told them this, and I thought they were going to disapprove it, say, no, you can't do it. They said, oh my God, can we do a press release on this? And can you do all this? I was like, you like it? And when they aired it, they shared it around, and then all of a sudden, I became the Latino Dominican person in the research department, and I was like, I could be me. So those examples are just so important. I'd love for you to maybe give some advice to our attendees. Looking at not only during those many years when you were in the C-suite, but the moment you actually broke through, and did something that has never happened before, just becoming named as CEO. What advice? Well, first of all, can you talk to us about and maybe give some advice in terms of what Latinos here should be thinking about if they really want to aim high and one day become a future CEO, and what are some things they should be thinking about, not only in terms of what they're doing internally, but maybe even their external strategy as well. What's your formula for that success, if there is? So yeah.
Well, that's a great question. I'll do my best in answering. I don't know that there's a formula, but I'll tell you what I did, and maybe it works for you, and maybe it doesn't. But about 5 years before I realized, wow, I could become CEO. I mean, first of all, I never thought it could happen, right? I had the Clark Cook conversation, and then I thought, oh, okay, I could be director, and then I could be an officer, and then I was an officer, and then I was a senior officer, and then I was executive officer. About 5 years before it happened, I thought, wow, this could happen. I mean, it was a little terrifying, right? This could happen. So how do I increase my odds? Because that's all it is. It's increasing your odds of it happening, because there's competition and there's going to be other people that are going to be equally going for it. So how do you improve your position versus theirs? And first of all, I would say there probably are 3 ways to become a CEO, traditional. And every once in a while, there's something completely different. But there's 3 traditional ways to get into the CEO job. The general counsel. Lawyers. I mean, how many of your CEOs come from the general counsel suite? A lot, right? Then there's the CFO, the financial piece. A lot of CEOs come from the CFO side. And then the third piece is operations. People that have run specific lines of business or business units and that kind of thing. Well, I wasn't a lawyer and I wasn't a financial person, so for me, it was all about operations. So as I thought about becoming a CEO about 5 years before it happened, it was like, I really needed to highlight my operational capability, and my operational results needed to be just, spotless. I needed to achieve more, do more, exceed performance, achieve higher levels of performance than had ever been achieved before, and I sought out to do that. So that's one piece. But beyond just getting to the job, once you become CEO, there's a lot of politics involved. There's a lot of investor relations involved. There's a lot of external aspects of the job. You are the face, you are the brand of the company. So as I started thinking about becoming CEO, I thought, well, I'm not going to wait till I'm CEO to get ready to do all those things. I started working all of those various pieces. So I started establishing relationships with politicians that were either in positions of power already or had trajectory to get there. So whether it was a mayor that I thought could become a senator that I thought could become something else, I had a strategic playbook for developing relationships with key politicians in federal, state, and local government. And that took time, but I did it. And I did it over 5 years. So by the time I became CEO, guess what? I knew everybody, and it was like on a first-name basis. I had everybody's personal cell phone number, and they had mine. You know what? That's pretty awesome. And it was fun. I enjoyed it. I was really impressed by the work they did and who they were as people, and I enjoyed it. It was not, yes, it was work, but it was also kind of nice to kind of get to know these people. So the politics mattered in my area. Media. I started really doing media interviews and did editorial board visits. I started getting to know who the opinion leaders were for all the major outlets in the service area that I was responsible for. I did some key not-for-profit work. So I looked at what were the key not-for-profit areas and who were the movers and shakers in each of these different boards, and I sought to be part of these boards, and I was successful. So I had politics, I had media, I had not-for-profit customer. I got to know our customers, our key customers, in a really significant way. I looked at who our 20 top customers were, and I visited every single one of them. I understood their business, I understood what they were looking from us, and I tried to develop value. Meanwhile, delivering great operational results. You can't lose sight of that. So by the time the CEO job became open, I felt like it was a no-brainer. But it wasn't, I didn't start at the end. I started 5 years ahead of time and just worked all these different pieces. So it takes work, and the first thing you gotta do is you gotta say, I wanna do this. I really want to become a CEO. And being like okay with that. Like it's not, ooh, overly ambitious. Oh, look at her, she's trying to become CEO. Be okay with it. Have a strategy for it. and execute that strategy. So not-for-profit work, I looked at the key not-for-profit parts of the business that I thought could be valuable, getting to know them, and I just did it. And so when the opportunity arose, I feel like I had really positioned myself well. That's how it happened. It didn't just happen.
Right.
It was hard work, a lot of hours, and a lot of thoughtful strategy around how to position myself so that the board would look at me as absolutely the right candidate.
That's great, and I think that's just, that's really important, the fact that this didn't start like suddenly. This was something that
5 years.
was 5 years in the planning and the making. My last question is what advice would you give for our Latinas here in terms of any kind of leadership philosophy or your mindset or any advice that you think that knowing what you know now, what you might have wished you had known then, what would that be?
There's a lot in there, Sid. I'm
Yeah.
going to pieces of it. So leadership philosophy, it's all about the people. At the end of the day, it's about your frontline employees, the people that are getting it done day in and day out, and having a connection with them. And so some people might call that servant leadership in terms of removing obstacles and helping people be everything that they can be. I truly believe in a servant leadership model. And maybe it's because of my own humble beginnings, maybe because I was a frontline employee with no aspirations. I think about my parents, but I've always had a very strong connection with the workforce. And I think you can never lose sight of what matters in your companies more than the people that are making it happen day in and day out at the front line. That's really important. Respect it, admire it, and realize the force in it, because you can't do anything without really inspiring that workforce to do more than it believes it can do. And so that would be number one. In terms of advice that I would give anyone who wants to be in a C-suite or a CEO position is, I would say do the hard jobs. Don't take the easy way out. Going back to, there's probably 3 paths to get into the CEO job, but take any C-suite job. Do the hard stuff. Learn your business. Do the work that other people don't want to do, and deliver and achieve high levels of results. First of all, you're going to get noticed, because everyone knows a hard job when they see a hard job. And all of a sudden, you did the hard job and you achieved great results, you're going to get noticed. But more important than that, what it will do for you in terms of your confidence, in terms of your own self-esteem, and what you will then bring to that next job and the one after that is invaluable. You will develop a confidence in your abilities that, man, is unstoppable. So do the hard work, do it well, get noticed, and develop a confidence around that. And then the third thing I would say is, if you really want it, go for it. No apologies. You don't have to apologize to anybody. So what? They think you're an ambitious woman. Good. If you really want it, develop a plan 5 years out and do the things that you realize need to be done to get there, and do it without apology, with integrity, with a high sense of ethics and quality. But give yourself the permission to go for it. That's what I did.
I love that. That's a great way to conclude this. So if everyone can please give a great, applause to Geisha Williams, our history-making first Latina CEO ever. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Really appreciate it.